So what does it mean to say that we are awake? To say that you are awake, or what I'm referring to when I say that, is to mean that you have come to the realization that you are it. To wake up to the fact that you and your existence in this universe is a part of everything simultaneously. It is the realization that you are everywhere and everything all at once. It is the realization, to put it again in the words of Alan Watts, that anything that you do is something that the entire universe is doing in the same way that a single wave is something that the entire ocean is doing. So, your experience as a person, John Doe, Jane Smith, Jamie McCormick, whoever, your experience as this individual entity that exists within a separate universe, the idea that you are operating under the pretense that you are just a blip that came into this universe, is traveling, and is eventually going to leave this universe. All of that is a lie. It's not even really a lie, but it's more of a misconception. It's a misunderstood pretense. To believe that you are separate from everything around you is a form of illusion. I have put it in these videos before, but to reiterate, in Buddhism, and I think Hinduism as well, there's a word for this, and the word is Maya, M-A-Y-A. I'll put it here. This is a Sanskrit word for illusion or veil or sometimes construct. So, to give some background to what it means to wake up, what it means to de-realize or realize, depending on the way that you want to put it, depending on the way that you want to look at it. In the Western world, in our culture, I'm from the United States. I think that most of my viewers are. But in our culture, we see the world as a construct. We understand that already. We see everything as this sort of thing that has been built, but we look at nature that way too. And that's why we have the idea of God that we have in our culture, which is that God is like the master architect. God is the creator of everything. So we see the universe and the world and the environment that surrounds us as this constructed building that we live in. Some of us even believe that it's a firmament, and I have no way of arguing or denying either way. But in Eastern cultures, particularly people who still subscribe to a classical form of Hinduism or Buddhism, see the universe and see the world less as a construct, less as an architecture, and they see it more as the Hindus see it as a play. The Hindus see it as a giant game. They see it as if me speaking into this camera and you watching this video are two sock puppets that are talking to each other. And who is really talking is the third, which is in, I believe, Brahman or Brahma. So the two sock puppets are speaking to each other, for lack of a better way to put it. And that the truth about who you are is that you are the person, quote unquote, controlling the sock puppets. In most of Chinese culture, hey, Ro, what are you doing? In Chinese culture, they see the universe as a sort of organism. The Chinese character for nature, and I'm not going to try to pronounce it because I don't want to mess it up, but the Chinese character for nature is also translated as of itself, in and of itself. It happens of itself. And in reality, that is really what we mean when we say nature. But as human beings, especially as human beings that grew up in the western part of this planet, we have this idea that we are separate from nature. We have this idea that we are not one with nature, and that actually nature is something that is opposing us, and that we need to fight against, that we need to protect ourselves against. And what we don't understand, what we don't realize, is that the nature that we are fighting against is what we are. It's who we are. We are a part of that nature. And when I say we, I really mean you. Because you is all-encompassing. The fact of the matter is that this is all just one entity. This is all one unified existence that only has the illusion of separation. And it's not only you from your environment that the illusion exists within, but it's also this from that. It's things that are separated by empty space. But we see that empty space as a separation instead of something that in a certain way conjoins them. If I have my two hands, or I'm holding a ball in each hand, because of the empty space that exists between the two balls that I'm holding, we believe that they are two separate objects. And in a practical sense, of course, they are. But we only really need to know that in the context of needing to communicate something. I need to know the difference between left and right in order to communicate, to navigate through the world. And so we have created language, and we've created concept and meaning and labels. We've created this through necessity to advance our culture, to advance our society, to become more advanced as a species. And I understand and appreciate that. At the same time, it has gotten to the point, and a lot of you know this already, it has gotten to the point where we have forgotten that these things, the quote-unquote things that we have created, these meanings and concepts, are not the ultimate reality that we exist in. The meanings and the concepts are forms of language and nothing else. They don't go any deeper than that. And really, the separation between one thing and another is merely an illusion. The empty space between those two things is negative space which conjoins those two things, in the same way that when I am drawing or making a painting, in the painting there is the illusion of separateness, of objects, but it is all made out of paint and canvas. And in the very same way, you and I, you and everybody, you and everything is all one. It is conjoined. There is no separation. Some of you that is going to resonate very deeply with. Some of you, you're not going to understand what I'm saying at all. And that's okay. Because then comes the paradox of being awake. Some of you will argue, and this is fine, some of you will argue that by saying this, by being a quote-unquote separate entity and speaking on the separateness of things, that inherently I am missing the point. And to a certain capacity, I would agree with you. Because the problem arises that when you try to speak about this concept, there is a universal truth. There is an underlying truth to what I'm saying that can only be understood if it is something that you have experienced without words. The universal truth that I am trying to spread, to awaken in people, is something that can only be understood beyond words. And so when words attempt to explain it, arises a paradox, which is to be awake. In a certain sense, you have to be unconscious of yourself. But in that unconsciousness, you develop a deeper consciousness of yourself and your environment and of the universe. In the modern world, we have, in the spiritual community, the assistance of quantum physics, quantum mechanics, modern science. The interesting thing about science is that everything that we discover through science is merely what has been told to us by certain very enlightened cultures such as Hinduism and Buddhism for thousands of years, but we are discovering and explaining it in a technical sense, which is unnecessary to a certain degree. Now, please don't take this as me, I'm not talking down on people with technical abilities. I'm not talking down on science. That's not my objective. So please don't take it that way. Don't take me too seriously. Okay, I'm just a guy. But what I mean is that one of the things we've realized through modern science is that things are all operating in a sense of vibration. Heat energy is particles vibrating back and forth. It's energy condensed to a slow vibration. Light is a vibrating wavelength. It's a photon vibrating, hitting your eyes. Sound is, of course, vibrational energy resonating with your eardrums, sending signals to your brain. So anything that you feel, anything that you experience, whether it be solid matter, whether it be sound, light, hot, cold, all of it exists in the form of vibration. Many cultures have known this since the very beginning, before we ever proved it with science. In the Bible, it says, in the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was God. Now, we have made a terrible mess of that because we believed as a society that when it said there was the Word, that this meant the law, that this meant the spoken word of God. But the Word was God. And what we meant was that there was sound. There was vibration. There's a sutra in the Hindu scriptures. Maybe somebody below can remember which one it is, but I forget. But it says almost exactly the same thing, that everything arises from sound. These two cultures, separate from each other, in a practical sense, knew the same truth. So, at the same time, to understand this awakeness, to understand this part of your conscious awareness, requires a certain understanding in a certain way that truth, objective truth, is something that escapes you. That is something, there is not really an objective truth. There is not really a true state of affairs happening at all times. And in a paradoxical way, by understanding that there is no such thing as objective truth, you uncover the truth. If that resonates with you, it is because it resonates with you in the same way that if I was explaining a certain color that I had seen and not many people knew about it, but you had seen it too, you would understand the color that I was describing. This is a form of description. This is an experience. If you're wondering where I'm getting this, where I'm coming to this conclusion from, I want you to understand that this is because this is a truth, or a quote-unquote truth in a paradoxical sense, that I have experienced in my own conscious existence. And a lot of other people have experienced it as well. And so when I'm describing this, it really isn't going to, it's really not going to resonate with anybody who hasn't already in some form had the same experience. And why is that? It's for the same reason that you can't describe a new color to somebody who has never seen it. It's for the same reason that you can't describe color to somebody who has been blind since birth. But the objective, if I have one, the objective is to put these ideas back out there. And the reason for that is because somebody who has already started down this path of realization, and keep in mind that there is no end. There is no objective, really. There's no final point in this. It's just going to continue to open up. But I want you to know that the reason that I'm putting this back out there is because if there is somebody who once felt like they realized and then has no longer experiencing that, they're no longer experiencing that in their day-to-day lives, which I've seen a lot. I've heard a lot from you guys, is that a lot of you, there has been a surprising amount of people who say that at one point I felt very awake and now I feel like I've lost it all. And they're arguing, almost with themselves about how, I just wish that I could feel this way again. And I want you to understand that, first of all, if you felt that way in the first place, then this is going to resonate with you. And if this resonates with you, there's nothing more really that needs to be done. Because the more that you attempt to liberate yourself, the more that you attempt and push and try to see things this way, the farther that it gets away from you. Because this truth, this underlying ultimate reality and foundational aspect of our universe that you're trying to observe, that you're trying to experience, that I'm trying to explain, does not want to be observed, experienced, or explained. It wants to run away. And that's why in science, when we zoom in closer and closer to molecules and the things that make everything up, there's always some new explanation. There's always something new that we discover something, we find an answer in one case, but then as a result of finding that answer, we now have 20 or 30 new questions. And the reason for that is because the universe in its truest form does not want to be observed. So, to go back to what I was saying about understanding this. Can you understand this just because I'm looking at you and saying it? No. Why is that? For the same reason that I cannot explain color to a person who has been blind since birth. I cannot explain the color red. I cannot explain the color blue to somebody who has never experienced the color red or the color blue. I also want to point out that this is not me putting myself or anybody else on a pedestal. This does not make me better than anybody else. This does not make you better than anybody else. Particularly because those people that you would, in theory, be better than, quote unquote, are also you. They're just a different part of you. And in truth, at the end of things, everybody is going to eventually come to this realization. And it doesn't have to be serious. In the sense of like when you go to a doctor and you ask them, doctor, is it serious? It doesn't have to be taken that way. It can be playful. It can be like music. So, I hope that this video resonated with somebody. I know it did. Thank you guys very much. I mean, the support this channel has been receiving has been like unbelievable. I love seeing all of your guys' comments. My heart is so full of love and gratitude for all of you being here, for all of you sharing this space with me, for all of you giving your energy and receiving mine and being here. It's just unbelievable. So, thank you very much for tuning in to Lace with Dreams. Much love to everybody who's seeing this video. Thank you for being a part of this community, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.